Gerald Lucas here with another installment of Ask Gerald, where you get your real estate questions answered. Today's question comes from Jody. And Jody writes from Hillsborough, New Jersey. And Jody writes, I've been negotiating the price on a house with a seller that wants a lot more money than the home is worth. What can I do to convince them that their asking price is too high? Well, that's a great question, Jody, and it's one that real estate investors struggle with all the time. But it also brings up a bigger, more important issue that I want to address, and that is who really has the power and leverage in real estate transactions like this. And the truth is that in most cases, the person with the money is the one who has the power and the leverage in these kinds of transactions. So for example, I'll give you 3 examples that demonstrate this. The first is your example, which is buyer and a seller of a house or a property. Now, who has the money in that situation? The buyer has the money. Now, you may ask yourself, well, what if the seller's price is higher than what the buyer wants? Well, then the house will sit unsold until a buyer comes along and decides to reach into his or her pocket and pay the asking price. So the final price in the sale of a house is always determined by a buyer who decides to pay the amount that they decide to pay with their money. Now, the second example that sort of demonstrates that the person with the money has the most leverage, and that is in a landlord-tenant situation. Now, in that context, the tenant is the one with the money. So again, the landlord can ask any rent price that they want, but until a tenant comes along and agrees to pay that much, the house or apartment will sit vacant. So the final rental price in a landlord-tenant situation is determined by the tenant who has the money, who decides to spend that money on an apartment or a property. Now, the third example I'm going to use to demonstrate the fact that the person with the money has the power is in a bank or lender versus a borrower context. In this case, if you're trying to get a loan, you need to borrow money. The bank or the lender has the money, and so therefore they have the leverage in terms of how much they're going to lend and the terms upon which they're going to lend. So the final terms and the amount that is lent ultimately is determined by the bank or the lender because they have the money. Now, incidentally, the power position switches after the money is loaned because now the borrower has the money and the lender needs to get payments from the borrower. So hopefully that gives you some insight. Person with the money almost always has the power. Thanks for your question, Jody. Good luck. For more real estate information and tips, visit my blog at geraldlucas.com. I'm Gerald Lucas, and I'll see you again soon.